Learning theories of the workshop model. The purpose of this video is to look into the research base of the workshop model for teaching reading and writing that is promoted by Teachers College Reading and Writing Project out of Columbia University. The contents will be a brief overview of the workshop model, John Dewey's influence, cognitive learning theories, and universal design for learning. So the workshop model is set up, these first 5 points happen within a 10-minute time period called the mini lesson. And in that mini lesson, I have the kids pulled together in a meeting area, and I begin with a connection, something that I can take that they already know and connect to the learning that they're going to do in that mini lesson. From there, I have a teaching point. It's an explicit, specific strategy or skill that I am going to teach them that they can use to become better readers or writers. Then I demonstrate. So watch me as I do the demonstration, and then I say, do you see how I, and repeat the teaching point again. Then I pull them into the active engagement. We're still in the meeting area. I still have their undivided attention, hopefully. And I engage them in the strategy that I've just demonstrated. From there, at the conclusion of the approximately 10-minute mini lesson, it's time to link them out into workshop, which is about a 45-minute time frame. And you'll see here, this slide presentation are my kids engaged during the workshop time, that 45-minute time frame. There's a variety of things that are happening during that time. It could be that they are taking that teaching strategy, that strategy that I just gave them, and using it in their writing or in their reading. Or it could be that they're working on goals that they had previously set based on other teaching points that they've learned from the mini lessons. I also will be conferring with kids, checking in, looking for opportunities to raise the level of their thinking, looking for kids who are struggling that need a little extra help. I might pull a small group or put a small group together with a flipped lesson to work on an area that I've noticed they need a little help with because of a weakness, or maybe I found a small group of kids who are ready for the next level of complexity, and I can pull them into a group and get them rolling there. It's a really independent time. It is a protected time for kids to practice those skills and those strategies to grow as readers and as writers. Towards the end, there's an opportunity to share. There's multiple different ways that they could share. It could be with a partner, it could be a whole group, it could be just an individual, something that they send to me, an exit ticket of some kind. And then just a brief overview of the expectation of what they are arriving back to workshop with the next day. That is workshop in a very, very concise nutshell. So to be able to really get to the research basis of the Reading and Writing Project's workshop model, the influence of John Dewey couldn't be ignored. And he was, John Dewey was someone I actually kind of got caught up in reading about him. I probably spent more time than I should have. The history buff in me kind of got carried away. But his early life, he was affected around the time he was 5 by events in the Civil War. It really affected his family. And so he grew up really believing in democracy, but also believing that aggression and war was didn't have a place in a democracy. He was a co-founder of the Teachers College at Columbia University and believed that education is the fundamental method of social progress and reform. He actually came across some of the spokespeople for unions and for workers' rights, during the Industrial Revolution, when what was happening was the business owners, the wealthy business owners, were in concert with the government, and it was really, they were able to keep the workers in such a state of poverty that he really saw the injustice of it, and it helped him solidify his belief that education was the ticket, was the key to a peaceful democratic society, and to really level that kind of a playing field, the access to education. He was what some call like the father of the progressive education movement. He believed 2 aspects needed to be considered for education to be effective: the psychological aspect, the emotional well-being of the child, the sociological aspect of like inside and outside of school, and how those are connected, not how they're separate. And in his writings, he went on to say, I believe the psychological and social sides are organically related and that they cannot be regarded as a compromise between the two or a superimposition of one upon the other. John Dewey, in later years, even though he was against aggression and war around the time of World War I, he shifted his position somewhat, which I think caused him to fall a little bit out of favor with people. He decided that instead of saying there was no place for aggression and for war, he shifted his philosophy to saying, you know what, I think aggression and war is okay if you're doing it to defend your democracy in the name of democracy, which I think that had some people kind of step back from him. In addition, there was a shift in, what people were pushing for education. There was a cry for back to the basics, that rote memorization, the skills, and this fluffy stuff that Dewey was standing for, and they felt kind of was, soft on the academic rigor, was falling out of favor. But I don't think, he didn't want to abandon that rigorous curriculum, but what he wanted was to make it applicable to life situations. He wanted it universal. He wanted it democratic. He wanted everyone to have the opportunity to succeed, regardless of their vocation, regardless of their class. That's again that place where he saw that education as the way to do that. Teachers College, right on their research-based webpage, has this quote here. I believe that education is the fundamental method of social progress and reform. I can see that still in the work that they do, in the units of study that they put out. Social justice is a big piece of the topics of some of their units of study. They're really getting at the heart of the Teachers College Reading and Writing Project. They say they want kids to read and write for real reasons, to advocate for themselves and others, to deepen their own and others' knowledge, to illuminate the lives they live and the world that they're a part of. And that, to me, mirrors John Dewey and his philosophy and his beliefs. And I think that even today, even though he's long gone, I see him still mirrored in the work that they do at the Reading and Writing Project at Teachers College. So, into the learning theories, there really is evidence of many, but the ones that I really found consistently, I really felt the cognitive learning theories have the most significant representation, with constructivism being like a close second. But I don't have time in this video to do all of them. So briefly, what I'll say pertaining to the workshop model and cognitive learning theories is that cognitive theorists believe the following: that what happens inside the mind, the mental processing of information, is an important part of learning. They view humans as active learners. What students do with information once they receive it determines how much they learn. Student attitudes, motivation, and beliefs can impact the learning process. Students can self-regulate their learning through awareness of their thinking and management of learning strategies. The meaningfulness of knowledge determines how well it can be applied in new situations. And they emphasize the importance of social interaction and context in the learning process. So in looking at these 6 beliefs of cognitive theorists, there is evidence of all 6 within the workshop model and the units of study. And I've tried to include pictures that I thought represented each one of those that I've taken from my classroom. These are my students. I see it. I see it in every part of workshop. I see it in every part of every lesson. That constant work with the cognitive theory and how we learn, and it's clearly a focus. In addition, so the universal design framework, universal design for learning, is also evident in the workshop model. There are 4 principles of UDL: multiple means of representation, multiple means of engagement, multiple means of expression, and multiple means of assessment, all clearly part of the workshop model. UDL is defined and endorsed in the Every Student Succeeds Act of 2015 and emphasized in the 2016 National Technology Plan. So the ultimate goal of UDL is to develop expert learners, students who are each in their own way resourceful and knowledgeable, strategic and goal-directed, purposeful and motivated, clearly a part of workshop. In addition, UDL stitches together 3 distinct areas of research that have been historically disconnected: learning sciences, cognitive psychology, and neuroscience research. The Universal Design for Learning has 9 guidelines put together by CAST, which is a nonprofit educational research and development organization. And out of those 9 guidelines, there are 31 checkpoints. These guidelines are intended to be cross-curricular and useful in that way. I think, re-envisioning them still, it's an ongoing process, and thinking about how they connect specifically to content areas. So, for example, in looking at it from the perspective of literacy, there are 4 broad themes for the disciplinary thinking in ELA related to the guidelines and workshop. And one is that we want kids to identify as a writer, read like a writer, we want them to write like a writer, and to read for meaning. And these are connected to those guidelines within the UDL framework. So, that, in a nutshell, is my presentation. I had a long list of theories that I could connect to the workshop model, but certainly couldn't include them all in this video. Instead, I chose the ones that seem to be embedded, for the most part, within the philosophy of the Reading and Writing Project, what really was at the heart of what they stand for and what they represent.